Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel from Picked at Dawn. I'm Susie and today you join me in my happiest place at my happiest time of year. That is in our propagating tunnel here in North Yorkshire. We're heading into the back end of February and that for us heralds our first en masse seed sowing session of the year. We specialise here in growing plug plants for cut flowers that we send out to people throughout the UK. So whether you're a flower farmer, growing in your garden, allotment, backyard, balcony and pots, wherever you're growing, you can hopefully begin to experience what makes us really happy. And that's the process of growing a plant right the way through to the flowering stage and then going out and picking yourself some fresh cut flowers, taking them into your house. To me, growing something that you can then go and pick freshly and enjoy in your home, there's just nothing can beat that experience for me. So that's what I'm really passionate about, and that's what I'm getting really excited about today at the beginning of the new season. And that goes some way to explain why I've got so many seed trays laid out on this table behind me here. So we've got 6,480 plug plants to sow on this bench, which stretches right to the top of the polytunnel. We obviously don't sow every single variety all at once. We sow in batches and stages, and today we're going to be sowing hardy annuals. Please don't get scared by the quantity you see behind me here. Obviously, if you are growing for yourself, you don't need to sow 6,500 plants all in one go. But I hope that if you follow these videos through the growing season and sow the varieties at the times we're sowing them, no matter what quantity you're growing in, these videos should benefit your growing with germination tips and tricks. So one of the key groups of flowers that I'm going to be sowing today are actually dark germinators. Now this might seem a bit strange if you've never come across it before, but a few of the varieties that we grow for cut flowers here, the seed actually germinates better if it's in the dark, which I know is quite unusual, and normally we're talking about light levels and getting enough light to your seedlings. There are three that I'm going to be talking about today that really like to germinate dark, and I do my first succession of sowing of them at this time of year. And that is scabious, cinnaglossom, which is also known as Japanese forget-me-not. And a few videos ago, if you remember, we put all our larkspur seed in the fridge. I'm going to get the larkspur seed out, and that is another plant that likes to germinate dark. So they're the three that we're going to be covering in this video today. Another cut flower that likes to germinate in this way is annual phlox. Now, like I say, we're in North Yorkshire. It is only the back end of February and we are sowing without any heat mat in this polytunnel today. So it's just still a little bit too cold for me to be starting our phlox seed. And we'll be sowing phlox in a couple of weeks' time here. Okay, so let's get on with some seed sowing. Before I start with the seed sowing, one question I get asked a lot is, what do we sow into? We sow directly into trays wherever possible, because we sell our plants as plug plants, and this is the size tray that they go out into, so we generally sow straight into these trays. They're really, really strong plastic. We keep them every single year. Some of these trays are over 20 years old now, and these are from PG Horticulture. If you're in the UK, I'll put the link below. I really like them because they're really strong, perfect size for annuals to go straight out into the field, and then perennials from this size we generally pot into 1 litre pots. Really good because you don't have to disturb the roots too much when you want the plants to come out, because you can just pop your finger through. And then I've also got a plug plant popper which pops the whole tray, and I'll show you that in another video. So that's the size tray that we're going to be sowing into today. First things first, I fill all the trays with compost. And we're going to be using our Bulrush multi-purpose peat-free compost to do that. That's the one that I showed you in the compost video. That's all the trays filled. Now I'm going to water them, and it's the weight of the water onto this fresh, fluffy compost that'll tamper the compost down, because with these larger seeds and the seeds that we're going to be sowing today, they actively want to be underground. They don't want daylight to germinate. So it's different to when you're sowing the smaller seeds like poppies and snapdragons, because they need to be surface sown because they need the daylight to germinate. Whereas these darker germinator seeds that are going to be in these trays here actively like to be under the ground, and we're going to do something as well as sinking the seeds which will help promote that growth. I'll show you that in a minute, but first I've got to water. And now we get to sow our seeds. Like I say, we're going to be sowing some scabious today. So here we've got our milkshake mix of scabious seed, and I'm going to be putting 3 seeds approximately per cell. What I do with scabious is I put them onto the surface and I actually press. I use my finger to press them into the compost. If this was a smaller seed that needed light to germinate, I wouldn't be doing this at all. But for these larger seeds, that's what I do. Now, after you've got all your seeds on, all we need to do now is top the trays off with a mix of compost and vermiculite, or compost and perlite. That just goes some way to prevent damping off as the seeds start to germinate and grow, particularly in spring when there's a lot of moisture held in the air. I do tend to find that topping with vermiculite or perlite does help. So one of my techniques here growing on this scale is I butt all of my trays up against each other. You probably saw when I was filling them with compost. This just helps me be able to rub across the top rather than filling each tray individually. And the beauty of having no gaps between the trays means that when you come to top off, I just simply do this and it makes it a lot quicker for me. There's no wastage there because all the trays are butted up against each other. As long as I don't get too overexcited and throw it off the edge of the table, we should be fine. Now what we need to do with these seeds, ironically, just as the days get longer, is we need to restrict their daylight. And it's really simple the way that I do this. I just gather together lots of old cardboard from packaging and put it over the top, and then I water the cardboard. So by watering the cardboard and adding moisture to it, it makes the cardboard obviously wet and it sinks down on top of the trays. Then you're creating a dark, moist environment for the seed. And another great thing about cardboard is that it's really good for insulation. So it insulates the seed as well. So it will actually make it warmer than if the plant was just exposed. So I tend to use cardboard now for covering up my dark germinators. And that is essentially it. So there we have it, a day's work, and all the dark germinators have been sown and covered with cardboard and watered. This cardboard will stay on here now until I see signs of germination. I wouldn't expect to see germination on these seeds for about 7 to 10 days, but I will keep coming in and having a little sneaky look under there just to double check. If it gets really warm over the next few days and I start to see that the cardboard's drying out, then I will re-water the cardboard, and that should keep enough moisture around the seed to allow germination. We don't need to water when seeds are germinating, because that at this time of year, particularly when the temperatures aren't really high, can induce the seed to rot and or start to damp off, and that's not what we want. Once I see signs of germination, and you should get some terrific germination using this technique, I'll rip all the cardboard off and expose that plant growth to normal daylight. And you should get some nice, chunky, juicy little plants. using this technique. The plants won't stretch for the sunlight if you take the cardboard off straight away. These seeds like to germinate in the dark. It's a little thing that I've learned about these varieties of seeds over the years, that these particular varieties do better germinated with this technique. So I hope that's helped, and you are looking forward to sowing some dark germinating seeds at the beginning of the season. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.